Welcome back to the Product Return Online Classroom. I'm Miss Celia, and in today's video we're going to be talking about one of the most iconic and influential poets in American history, and her name is Maya Angelou. Maya Angelou was born in 1928 and recently died in 2014, and she was an American poet and civil rights activist. She has published 7 autobiographies, 3 books of essays, multiple books of poetry, and has been involved in working and creating many movies, plays, and TV shows over the span of 50 plus years during her career. As a young adult, she enjoyed dancing, calypso music, modern dance, and African dance, and she also enjoyed performing. She actually performed with a traveling opera group in Europe in the mid-1950s, where she was able to learn how to speak multiple European languages within a year each. Maya Angelou was a staple in the civil rights movement. She began to focus on her writing career after she met a novelist in 1959 by the name of John Oliver Killens, and he convinced her to move to New York, and she met many popular African writers of the time, and she became much more involved in civil justice, and her writing became a lot more geared towards civil rights and civil justice. She organized the Cabaret for Freedom after a meeting with Martin Luther King Jr., and the Cabaret for Freedom raised money for Martin Luther King Jr.'s Southern Christian Leadership Conference. And she eventually ended up moving to Africa with her son after meeting a South African freedom fighter. She eventually settled in Ghana, and she became an administrator at the University of Ghana. She was also a freelance writer for national newspapers, and she performed in the Ghana National Theater as well. At this time, she became friends with Malcolm X, another civil rights leader, during his visit to Ghana, and she followed him back to the United States to help build the civil rights advocacy group that is known as the Organization of Afro-American Unity. Soon after this organization was formed, Malcolm X was assassinated, and she moved to Hawaii with her brother to continue her singing career. During this time, though, Maya Angelou continued to write about her experiences as a Black woman during the civil rights movement, and she created some iconic works titled Blacks, Blues, Black, and her most famous work is I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. In her later career, her efforts in the civil rights movement and her writing inspired everybody and inspired the world. She was nominated and received many awards for her contributions in many fields, including a Pulitzer Prize for her poetry, a Tony Award for her performances in theater, and 3 Grammys for her spoken word albums. She also served on 2 presidential committees for civil justice and received the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 2011. She also received over 50 honorary degrees around the nation. Maya Angelou's first book of poetry, which is the one that we are going to be grabbing an excerpt from today, is called I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. And this book of poetry is probably the most iconic work by Maya Angelou and most notable. It was her first published book of poetry, and it details a coming-of-age story of how her love for literature helped her overcome trauma and racism that she experienced as a teenager. There's a notable shift in the book. At the beginning, she described herself as a victim of racism, whereas at the end, she becomes a dignified, strong woman who is stronger than the prejudice that is around her. So it's a real coming of age from victim to overcoming. She explores really sensitive topics in this poetry book, such as coming with her identity, rape, racism, and literacy in the Black community. And she also details what living life as a woman in a male-dominated society means and how that limits her as a woman and as a Black woman during the civil rights movement. The book was nominated for the National Book Award in 1970 and was a New York Times bestseller for 2 years, and has since been used in schools and in education and is highly celebrated around the world. The poem that I want to read with you today is called Caged Bird by Maya Angelou. It comes from I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings.
I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings by Maya Angelou. A free bird leaps on the back of the wind and floats downstream till the current ends and dips his wing in the orange sun rays and dares to claim the sky. But a bird that stalks down his narrow cage can seldom see through his bars of rage. His wings are clipped and his feet are tied, so he opens his throat to sing. The caged bird sings with fearful trill of things unknown but longed for still, and his tune is heard on the distant hill, for the caged bird sings of freedom. The caged bird thinks of another breeze, and the trade winds soft through the sighing trees, and the fat worms waiting on a dawn-bright lawn, and he names the sky his own. But a caged bird stands on the grave of dreams, his shadow shouts on a nightmare scream, his wings are clipped and his feet are tied, so he opens his throat to sing. The caged bird sings with a fearful trill of things unknown but longed for still, and his tune is heard on the distant hill, for the caged bird sings of freedom. This was I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings by Maya Angelou. Thank you guys so much for joining me on today's reading and rap video, and I hope you have a fantastic weekend. I will see you in the next video. Bye!